Welcome back. I have a special guest here with me today. Her name is Allegra Gast, and she is a functional registered dietitian. And I don't know if she knows this, but Allegra, you were actually one of the very first people that I met when I started my business. You were like one of my very first business friends, and we've stayed in touch. That was a business program that we did back in fall
2020
2020.
with
Yeah.
COVID.
So Sophie was tiny. I think she was like 5 months old, maybe at that point. And yeah, I can't wait to share Allegra with you, but I do have some personal regret about not hiring Allegra sooner. And I will mention as we go along when I did hire her and the benefits that I got. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive in. If you want to introduce yourself, Allegra.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I loved that program we did together. I think that was great. So yeah, I'm Allegra. I'm a registered dietitian and I'm also an IBCLC lactation consultant. I kind of got into this field of nutrition because I love food. I love knowing how it makes you feel. But it wasn't until I had my first baby where I just felt like there needed to be more support for the postpartum period. And just I saw how important nutrition was for supporting your mental health, supporting poor sleep, because we know babies wake up frequently. So I usually say, like, food is fuel. We need to make sure we're fueling ourselves. We oftentimes just get nutrient depleted. Being a parent takes a lot from us, stress takes a lot from us. And so just over the years and after my first baby, just feeling exhausted all the time. And I feel like we've kind of normalized that with pregnancies and with having kids, just feeling tired all the time. But it really doesn't have to be that way. I have 4 kids. So I had my first back in 2019, and that's kind of where I shifted my whole philosophy and just career towards supporting families. But then I had my second baby in 2021, and then I just recently had twins in 24, so this past year, and they have rocked my world. But it's like been so amazing seeing how when you do practice what you preach, and it's like, not gonna lie, it's been hard to implement eating right, focusing on quality sleep, supporting breath work and just nervous system regulation. But when you put in the work, I feel good. Like, I'm actually really enjoying this postpartum period, and it's been night and day difference compared to my first. My first, like I said, I was tired all the time. I was more moody and emotional. I felt like more ragey. And like, even though I was a dietitian and like eating well, I wasn't focusing on minerals specifically. I wasn't focusing on like quality sleep.
Oh my goodness. It was so good to hear all of that. And I want to get more specific. Can you like walk us through what was happening for you after your first baby? What were some of the like signs or things that you really did not feel good about? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, so some of the like big ones, I was just like tired all the time. And of course, everyone tells you that's normal.
They do.
You're recovering. But honestly, my baby slept really well for a baby. And I was always like, wow, okay, I got a 5-hour stretch of sleep. And then I remember she was sleeping through the night all on her own. I didn't do any sleep training, nothing.
Wow.
By 6 weeks. And I was like, okay, well, I'm getting like all this sleep. Like, why am I still so tired all the time? Like, to be honest, I was drinking wine a lot. I just felt like
Mhm.
emotional. I felt like every night I just needed a drink to help wind down. Don't think that helped at all. And then my husband, he's in the military. And so he had to go on like a deployment. It's called
Oh,
EY. It was 2 months. He left when I was about 4 months postpartum. And I realized, like, hey, I have to take care of my baby and this house and myself. Something has to change just because I was feeling very low. I wouldn't say it
mhm.
was necessarily postpartum depression, but definitely like the blues that were lasting a little bit longer than I feel like
Yes.
it should have been. We don't have any help where we lived. I mean, being a military family, we didn't have much help. And so, yeah, I was just like, something needs to change. And I was not prioritizing protein. I ate cereal every morning with like almond milk, which honestly just causes a sugar crash. I
The
wasn't
cereal or the almond milk?
Both.
Both. Okay,
You
good
know,
to
because
know.
almond milk is really only 1 to 2 grams of protein, and ideally you need 20 to 30 grams per meal to keep your
Mm,
blood sugar steady. And so cereal is just naturally a little bit higher in carbohydrates, and carbohydrates
yes.
causes a spike in sugar. And then, that's just a normal thing that happens. But as long as you can pair that with protein, it should keep your blood sugar steady. And so the fact that I was having like cereal that causes the spike in blood sugar, and then not having enough protein because I was drinking almond milk instead of like regular milk or organic soy milk or even hemp milk or pea milk, even just some other option. I wasn't getting enough protein, which then would cause this energy crash. Luckily, I didn't have any like breastfeeding concerns with milk supply, but I did
Yeah.
have like, cracked nipples. My baby had a posterior tongue tie. So I think that kind of contributed to the emotional aspect. It wasn't necessarily the birth I wanted. And I think that also kind of contributed to that mental part. Like I felt kind of
Yes.
robbed of my birth. I think all these things kind of contributed. Mental health is not always one thing, it definitely is multifactorial. So I think
Yes.
adding that, knowing that my husband had to leave, I mean, they don't
Mhm.
get much paternity leave either, not having enough support like my village, and then adding that layer of nutrition and just being nutrient depleted. I think it all kind of just like came together and
Compounded for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you just had a recent, well, like, is it almost a
Yeah, they're
year?
almost a year now at this point.
That's wild. I feel like
Flown
you just
by.
had them. My
Yeah, they go so
goodness.
fast.
Well, we'll still say just because it's only a year. Now, this most recent postpartum, even though these were your third and fourth children, it was vastly different in terms of energy, mental health. Like what? Like talk to me about that.
Yeah. So right from the start, I mean, even throughout my pregnancy specifically, I would say this was the best pregnancy I had too, with twins compared to
Wow.
my first. Kind of once again, going back to my first, I didn't prioritize nutrition. I wasn't getting enough protein. I wasn't taking quality prenatal vitamins, just like really cheap ones that you buy from CVS. And, quality does matter. And then I wasn't getting like electrolytes. And so I always had Charlie horses. I had really bad insomnia. I wasn't getting enough magnesium, which can help with
Mm,
sleep. I had a lot of nausea and would vomit here and there. Whereas this twin pregnancy, I felt great. I felt good. I mean, I had some fatigue here and there, and I had some queasiness in the first trimester, but never vomited, never felt like a lot of those symptoms. And obviously, they're still there. I mean, we're growing placenta, we're growing two babies.
yes.
It's a lot on our bodies. But even like the Charlie horses, I would feel something like some cramping, and I would immediately take some electrolytes, and they totally went away. My sleep was better. And so I did a lot of that back going into the postpartum period. I really focused on protein, getting enough collagen, really taking my electrolytes, specifically like magnesium, and then really just prioritizing, hey, even though I have two crying babies right now, I need to grab a snack. Like before I sit down to nurse or before I get nap trapped, let me get a quick PB&J and I
Mhm.
think PB&Js are underrated. They are a great
That's
pick
good
me.
to hear.
Yeah, I am a fan of PB&Js, ideally whole wheat bread, even higher protein bread, peanut butter, and I can buy the chia seed jelly. I don't know if you've seen those before, but
No.
yeah, they put chia seeds in the jelly. So just another way to kind of sneak a little bit more of that nutrition. I wouldn't obviously neglect my babies, but I would just make sure I was taking care of myself too. The
Right.
twins had really bad witching hours. So from like 5 to 9 p.m., there was just
Mm,
nothing you could do. They would just cry. You would bounce them, baby wear, go outside, put them
all
in the
the
back.
things.
And just like nothing. And so me and my husband would like tag team. He would take the two babies, kind of bounce around while I would like quickly scarf down food and then we'd
Yeah.
switch. So I still made sure to like really fuel myself, focus on nutrition. I mean, I would baby wear while I'm making myself an electrolyte drink, like a mineral mocktail. Um,
Hmm.
and then just making sure I was replenishing my nutrients, also eating enough. I would say the biggest difficulty was still just the overwhelm and like the
Mm.
mental aspect. Like, yes, you could do all the nutrition side, but we still need help. My older two were acting out. My second was regressing from potty training. And
Yeah.
then two crying babies who had like colic, and then my husband, it really affected him with his mental health from the military and like
Yeah.
PTSD. And he's fine if I talk about it. But yeah,
I'm
so like
glad he
all of this
is.
stuff, it was still like a lot mentally. But honestly, I think it would have been so much worse if I wasn't prioritizing nutrients. Food is fuel. The way that our body operates, especially operates optimally, we need
Mhm.
the nutrients. We need vitamins and minerals, getting enough carbohydrates, getting enough protein and healthy fats.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was a
Yes.
big difference. So even though like we had so much more stress this third round, I felt like my body was more equipped to handle it. And I always tell even my clients, like, we can't get rid of all stress, but we can build stress resiliency.
I
And
couldn't agree
so
more. Yeah. And you're so knowledgeable that there's things that you share that people probably listening are like, what? Like, wait, hold on. I need to replay this. Even like blood sugar spikes. I feel like that people are becoming more aware of, oh, we should, work to balance our blood sugar. But to be completely honest, I knew nothing about that until 2021. And so for anyone listening, if you're resonating with this, if you're postpartum or you just want to fuel your body better with nutrients and minerals, or if you know somebody who's pregnant or you're pregnant, follow Allegra. I will link her Instagram in the show notes, but I just wanted to just say that now because you are a wealth of information. You're so generous in like Instagram stories with what you share and how you guide women through what is going to help them from a nutrition standpoint. I wish that I had worked with you after Sophie because in hindsight, I think I was definitely depleted of nutrients and minerals. And I had an idea that my hormones were off. And I tried to, Google it and fix in like little ways that I heard, but it wasn't. It did not help until I actually finally in 2023 was like, I need to hire somebody who knows how to do this, who knows what they're talking about. Just that for me, mine was almost the opposite. While I was pregnant with Annabella, my first, I prepped all of these freezer meals, nutrient dense. So then I made 20 of them. I was eating
wow,
for weeks and weeks and weeks,
amazing.
just great. And then I had Sophie in 2020 and I don't know what I ate, but nothing good. Very, very little that was replenishing me. And I was just trying to survive. She was March 2020 baby, but I don't want to make it about me. I just wanted to throw that in. Can you talk to us like some basics in terms of hacks for sneaking in nutrients and like signs that people may be feeling depleted or that they are depleted?
There are so many things nowadays that depletes us of our nutrients. I mean, just pregnancy alone and breastfeeding takes about 10% of our nutrients. So if we're having back-to-back pregnancy and we're never
Mm.
repleting from the previous pregnancy, I mean, we're just further contributing to this depletion. And then other things that deplete us is stress, and our body just sees stress as stress. So this could be environmental stress, so things in our environment, pollution, endocrine disruptors, so like products we might be using, mental, emotional stressors, and then physical stressors, even just a car crash, surgery, over exercising. We think, oh, exercise is great, but sometimes you can over exercise,
Yeah.
under eating, poor sleep, like all of these things, they negatively affect how we operate. It further depletes us of our minerals. And for those that don't know what minerals are, even vitamins, I like to think of them as like factory workers. So we have thousands of different bodily functions. Every single hormone that is released from our brain, it needs it needs minerals to function, to know where to go in the body. If we're not getting enough of these factory workers, these processes in the body is not going to function optimally. So we've kind of talked about COVID a little bit here and there. So
Yeah.
like during COVID when people weren't working much. They weren't going into the office. Things were taking so long to operate. I remember Amazon took away their 2-day Prime, 2-day
Mhm.
shipping, and we're like, what? Now we have to wait like a week, 2 weeks. So, when you take away this mandate, things are going to be a little slower. And so if you're taking away these minerals or factory workers, as I mentioned, then we're not going to function optimally. And so minerals are things like iron, potassium, magnesium, copper, iodine, calcium. Some easy ways to just kind of add them in is obviously food, but then also you could take supplements here and there, but I'm more of a fan of getting it from food. It is important to note, though, that our food is not as nutrient rich as it once was, and that's because our soil is not as nutrient rich. So we're not doing this regenerative farming. We're putting a lot of chemicals in the soil. And so this can further deplete our minerals. Spinach, it's a great source of magnesium, but probably not as great as it once was like 50 years ago. So you could eat really healthy, but still be nutrient depleted because our stress is so much higher and we're not getting the bulk of our nutrition from the food because of that soil that's been depleted. So I am a fan of like supplementing with magnesium, taking additional electrolytes like sodium and potassium. I feel like we've kind of demonized sodium, but as long as
Mhm.
they're getting enough potassium, they should balance each other. And we used to get a lot of this mineral also from our water, but now we're filtering our water, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's getting rid of things that shouldn't be in our water, but with that, it is taking away some of those minerals. So being very intentional with getting adequate food, taking supplements where necessary. I used to be against supplements because I was like, oh, we can get everything from our food. But just kind of over the years, and just like with my first pregnancy, I was still a dietitian, still thinking like I was eating well, but I was not focusing on this mineral repletion. So going back to your original question, ways that we can get that, focusing on quality meats. Meats are very bioavailable, which means that the minerals in it is more bioavailable. So like the iron is more bioavailable. Our bodies can absorb it better than like say spinach or different plants. Making sure that you're getting a variety of fruits and vegetables, getting a variety of healthy fats, avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil, especially like extra virgin olive oil. And then, of course, just managing those stressors. So, like, you can take all the supplements, eat all the healthy foods, but like, you still want to address the thing that is depleting you of nutrients.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, focusing on quality sleep, not over exercising, making sure you're getting enough calories, getting enough protein, removing things in possibly our environment that might be depleting you of minerals, asking for help, finding your village. All
Yes.
those things can help support that fast mineral depletion. So while you focus on mineral repletion, you also want to address the things that are depleting you too. Make that-
Absolutely. Yeah. I heard you mention meat. Can I ask? I have this memory that before you were vegan or vegetarian,
Yeah.
what caused the switch? Because I think usually when people go vegan or vegetarian, they continue on that path.
It was when I got pregnant with my first. So I was vegan for probably about a year and I felt really good about it. Like I felt fine, but it also took 5 months for me to get pregnant. I don't know if that was because of being vegan or just not really knowing my cycle. That could have
Mm.
been a big part too, because you can only really get pregnant 5 days out of the month. But once I got pregnant, I had so many food aversions. Beans, that was my big source of protein, and tofu, that was a huge source of my protein. I just had huge aversions to that. And I
Mm.
was getting really worried that, oh no, what if I'm feeling sick all the time, or my baby's not getting the protein he needs or she needs to grow and develop? You're literally creating a baby. When I started having all these food versions, I was like, shoot, I'm not getting any protein. I don't want beans. I don't want tofu. I'm going to
Mm.
have to eat a ton of peanut butter. Um, and it was just really hard. So then I first kind of brought in Greek yogurt back in, and then I brought in eggs and just like slowly kind of reintroduce things. And then I just read other books. I don't know if you're familiar with Real Food for Pregnancy by Lily Nichols, but she talks a lot about just how important eating like our ancestors did, eating nose to tail, like the whole part of the animal, and just how bioavailable rich animal products are. And so I just started like adding a little bit more, adding more fat, adding more protein. And I think that was also the biggest difference between my second and third pregnancies was I did eat more animal based. I incorporated liver into my ground beef recipes, focusing on like dairy products, which is a great source of iodine and calcium as well as vitamin D. I think you can be fine on a vegan diet, but you really have to be intentional and take additional supplements. I think it's very hard, at least for me now, like with having other kids balancing, and it can get expensive because you're buying a lot of like fake products, even just like the fake meats and stuff. And a lot of it now is very high in soy and soy products. It worked for a little bit for a season for me, and it might
Yeah,
work for other people out there, but for me, I realized like I needed animal products. That's kind of how I slowly brought it back in. And my
that
husband
makes
was really
sense.
happy. He's never on board. He would obviously eat the food I would make, so he would eat
Yeah.
my vegan meals. But if we ever went out to eat, he always would get steak and all that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's just really listening to your body and taking in the knowledge that you knew and what you knew that she needed. And that makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. Thanks for explaining that. I wanted to share one thing that I did with you, which is a hair mineral test. And I already ordered another one. I haven't done it yet, but I
Mm.
found so much value in doing this and giving like where my minerals actually are. One thing that you said is we've demonized sodium. And in my naiveness, yes, I demonized sodium. And when we did the hair mineral test, I barely had any. It was so low. And you asked me about it. I was like thinking about what I eat in a day. And I'm like, I don't even add salt. I do now, but I wasn't even adding salt to like green beans or anything that you would typically add it to. And I thought it was so valuable to have hard data in front of me about where my minerals were too low and what to adjust. So I'd love if you share a bit about that.
About the hair test or
Yeah.
sodium or both?
The hair
Yeah.
test. I was thinking, yeah.
So a hair test is one way to assess our minerals in the cells inside the tissue. So hair is part of your tissue. And a lot of times when doctors screen for minerals, they're just looking at the blood, but the blood tries to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is like equilibrium, like that balance. And so it'll take minerals from our tissue into the blood to maintain that homeostasis. And so a lot of times when we do blood work, everything looks normal, but you don't necessarily feel it because we're not getting enough minerals in the tissue, like in the cells. And so blood work can be helpful, but it's not the full picture. And same with urine. It's also just that one sample, like just that one blood draw or just that one urine sample. Whereas when we look at our hair minerals, it's looking over the course of 2 to 3 months. So it gives you more of a general idea of how you're doing with your minerals. So basically, the hair test, you take about half an inch to an inch of hair from the scalp, closest to the scalp, and that can really tell us what minerals are in your tissue, what your body is pushing out during times of stress. And so the big ones that it looks at is calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. It looks at other ones like copper, zinc, selenium, boron, molybdenum, like other ones. But the big ones, especially on yours, yeah, were those
Yeah.
electrolytes were the first four: calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. And sodium and
Yes.
potassium work together. I don't know if anyone remembers in biology class in high school or college, but the sodium potassium pump, it's a pump on every single cell in your body that helps bring nutrients and water in and out of the cells. So if this pump is not working optimally, it's going to be harder for other nutrients to come into the cells. And inside the cell is where you have your mitochondria, which I don't know, once again, if anyone remembers in
I
biology,
remember the word.
but the mitochondria is your cell's battery. It's the battery pack. It's where the energy is produced. And so if you're not getting these minerals into the cells because this pump is not working optimally, you don't have enough sodium, potassium, you could take all the foods, all the supplements, but you really want to optimize that pump so that nutrients get
Mm,
into the cells. And this is why myself and so many of my clients, even just followers on Instagram, because I talk about this on my Instagram, once they implement electrolytes and just adding a pinch of like sodium with pinch of salt and like cream of tartar or even coconut water, just a source of potassium, they like literally feel better. Their cells are now hydrated. Their skin isn't as dry. Even their hair improves. Their gut health improves. Like minerals, especially those electrolytes, are foundational for so many things. It helps with hydration, it helps with digestion, helps with detoxification. Like every single thing in our body requires these minerals. So,
so
yeah,
fascinating.
thankful that we could do it for you and kind of see where you were low, where you were high, where you needed to put more emphasis on things. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I was low in sodium and potassium. And you said that those are the two for the pump. So then so many nutrients weren't able to get into my cells. And I had several symptoms. It's been a while now since I think it's been a year, almost a year. So I'm trying to remember all my symptoms, but I was drinking like coffee, like so much to mask how tired I was feeling. And it had become my new normal that I didn't even realize. I think when you asked, "Oh, is this a symptom that you have?" I was like, "No, I'm not tired." But then I cut out coffee, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I was exhausted."
so did you
And
feel better? Did you feel like it helped?
yes, yes, I'm
Yeah.
still drinking mineral mocktails twice a day. I don't think I'll ever go back. I can't wait to
Same.
do the test again. So I wish I wrote this down before the interview, but exhaustion.
I can pull it up if you
Oh,
want to.
I was struggling to lose weight. What are some other signs and symptoms? And maybe I'll be able to pick mine out.
Constipation can be one, insomnia, poor sleep,
Okay, I had
um,
some poor sleep issues.
brittle nails, excessive hair loss is a big one, abnormal menstrual cycle. So periods are either like really heavy or non-existent or really bad cramping. Yeah, I would say like those are the big ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're listening and you have any of those symptoms, those may be signs that it would be valuable to do a hair mineral test, get the hard data, and then work with Allegra. I'll put that plug in.
They get lab work done, but everyone says, oh, everything's normal. Like, we don't know. Some people are
Mhm.
just more prone to digestive issues or just prone to excessive hair loss, or, oh, you're a mom, you're going to feel tired all the time. But when you do this mineral test, we can see, like, oh, wow, you're actually depleted here and here.
I skipped the blood work because I heard you say that and someone else who helps people with their hormones specifically. And her name's Lori. And I worked with her as well. And so I just skipped that. And I was like, okay, let's do these other tests and
It's still
figure out.
valuable to try test it, but it's not the end all be all.
I was just saying what I did, but good to know for everybody else. And yeah, I can't wait to test again. So, is there anything else that you would want listeners to know about minerals and just nutrients? Anything else coming to mind?
Yeah, I think a big thing is what you're feeling is valid. I feel like a lot of times we're gaslit or we're told it's normal when it's not. And we all have that gut instinct. So listen to that. Find second opinions if you need to. Test, don't guess. Sometimes we just like start guessing and throw supplements here and there. But like the testing really tells you what's going on. And then just be patient. I know a lot of this is probably overwhelming and it's like, a 180 type shift, especially if you're not used to eating well or eating enough fruits and vegetables, or if you're like a picky eater. So I would just start small. Just choose one new thing that you can focus on. Maybe that's just drinking more water. Maybe that's just adding a little bit more protein to your meals. I am not a fan of eliminating things. Like I've had even clients say like, oh, I tried eliminating this, eliminating that, eliminating this, and I just can't lose the weight or whatever. whatever it is. And so I talk about like, let's add things in. And oftentimes, once we add things in, it just naturally displaces the other things. So, like, if you feel like you're craving sugar all the time, try adding more protein to your meals, even like adding more magnesium to work on blood sugar. And most likely, those cravings, those carb cravings will go away because now your blood sugar is steady. And oftentimes, when we have this yo yo, we do crave more sugar because our body's like, hey, mayday, mayday, we're going too low. We need a pick me up. And so then you crave more sugar. So times when we could just add things in, even if you're not into eating a lot of meat, like protein doesn't just have to be from meat or even animal products. Like, could you do a higher protein type of bread? Or even like Kodiak pancakes, Kodiak
Mhm.
waffles, eating edamame as a snack, or if you're making a smoothie, add some peanut butter and some Greek yogurt, or even like protein powder if you want to. If you drink a lot of coffee, maybe you add some collagen powder to that. So it doesn't have to be, oh, I have to eat a slab of meat, 20 to 30 grams. It can be small amounts. Maybe you sprinkle hemp seed onto your salad or add some chickpeas or beans here and there.
I love
Um,
all these ideas.
so just like a big thing when I was pregnant and like it had these meat aversions was just choosing those higher protein carb options. So even with spaghetti, doing the higher protein spaghetti. They even have higher protein ice cream. I think it's like Halo.
Halo? Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Clearly, I've had it.
So like, just kind of choosing more, adding more protein, adding more things in, adding those electrolyte drinks. I know nutrition is very overwhelming. And I always say if it was easy, I wouldn't have a job. So they're
Yes.
complicated. And I feel like we've overcomplicated it. But just go back to the basics, cook more at home, just limit how often you're eating out because now like you're in control of things. Like even if you
Mhm.
wanted to go out for pizza, try making your own pizza. Little things like that. I know it can be stressful, but like I said, just like one little habit, even just incorporating a little more movement throughout your day, getting outside, doing some breath work here and there. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know some women, when their body isn't functioning the way that it used to, or maybe they're having some of these signs or symptoms, or emotionally, they're not feeling like they wish that they did. They can have moments where they feel broken. And so I wanted to ask you, if someone today listening was feeling broken, what advice would you have for them?
just because you're broken doesn't mean you're unfixable. There are things you can do. Sometimes it can take time. Like healing is a journey, it's not linear. I heard this quote. It was like, just because you feel broken, there's the cracks. Light can still get in. There's still light at the end of the tunnel. Also, know you're not alone. People go through this, people feel broken. But like I said, there is hope. Being broken doesn't mean you're unfixable. There are things you can do. And like even you, Stephanie, like the work that you're doing is amazing. And I know you're helping so many people out there. So there is hope out there. Give yourself grace, give yourself time. Healing takes time. So yeah.
Thank you so much. It was so good to have you on today. Where's the best place that people can find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. It's aloha.nutrition. So I started my practice when I lived in Hawaii. So yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can also visit my website, aloha-nutrition.com. So we have a team of dietitians as well as lactation consultants, and we're all about getting to the root cause of what's going on with your health.
Check her out, and I'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much.